to our next edition of Spotlight on Americas. I'm especially excited about our discussion today since this topic has already caused so much disruption and it actually promises to disrupt even more. Our discussion today is focused on Gen AI, the opportunities it brings, the potential impact on jobs and the economy, and the ethical considerations and challenges of AI. Joining me for this discussion today are Lan Guan, who leads Accenture's Gen AI Global Center of Excellence, May Habib, CEO and co-founder of Writer, a Gen AI platform for the enterprise, and Tom Lounibos, who leads Accenture Ventures. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Shivani.
Good to be here.
Hello.
Hi, Shivani.
Lan, maybe you can start us off with a quick introduction on Accenture's point of view on Gen AI.
Absolutely. Shivani, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to talk to the audience and share our perspective. I would say I probably have one of the most exciting jobs these days in Accenture, leading Generative AI Center of Excellence. So that's an initiative that we put together a couple of months ago by bringing together all of our advanced AI talents within Accenture, about 2,000 of them, so that we can bring our best capabilities to our clients to help them respond to this very urgent, acute demand of generative AI. But of course, we have been doing, artificial intelligence, data AI type of work for more than 2 decades within Accenture. So this is something that, again, capturing the demand from the Gen AI space is built upon our decades of experience, our deep industry knowledge, our, very advanced technical expertise in all disciplines within artificial intelligence. So very excited to be leading this initiative for Accenture.
Great, wonderful. Thanks, Lan. Tom, would love to hear a bit more from you, and then hopefully also it would be great if you could introduce May and her wonderful company.
I'm really anxious. Thank you, Shivani, and Lan, thanks for joining. But I'm really anxious to kind of get to May and her company, Writer.AI, which we think will have a profound effect on what we do, especially in the next couple of years when you think about first steps. Shivani, kind of what you talked to, there's a lot of buzz out there. There's a lot going on. There's been, just to give you some context, there's been almost $2 billion invested in the last 90 days in generative AI. There's over 13 unicorns already. I hate that term, by the way, but billion-dollar valuations. And I think actually our guest today may have the 14th unicorn coming out very soon as she is raising money. But it's having a profound effect. Obviously, Julie came out with our $3 billion investment that we'll make over the next few years into this area. So, Lan, you've got your work cut out. From an investment standpoint, we're investing in this category quite a bit. We've been investing for 2 or 3 years into it, working with Lan and her team, Teresa and Denise, to find the best players. And there are a lot of really interesting players, which makes it difficult to figure out who are the winners from the losers. The more important thing to understand is where do we want to play the game? What categories, what areas we want to play? And there's 3 particular areas. There's the platform layer, and you heard of OpenAI, and Lan and I are both really very much like Cohere for interoperability, and there's also Anthropic around responsible AI, which is going to be a category we want to talk about today. But then there's an orchestration layer, which to some degree Writer plays into at the foundational level, at the foundational model level, and then the app layer, and we'll particularly be talking about that with May. So let me get into it with May. May, for all of you, May Habib is an extraordinary founder. She is a Harvard graduate that worked in venture capital. Actually, was one of a vice president managing a $20 billion fund for a sovereign fund. She also has been a founder before she got here. She worked for Lehman Brothers as well as an analyst. So her background is economics and now very much AI. May, thank you for joining. Very excited about your company. What struck me when I first met you was, the fact that this is kind of full stack. You work on, the foundational model and the app layers, and not just one app layer. When I first leaned in, I saw marketing, but it was clear to me that this is about a number of different workflows, whether it's legal or AI or HR or sales even. Why'd you start it? What problem were you solving?
Yeah, great questions. My co-founder and I and some of our core engineering and AI team members all worked on machine translation before Writer, and we discovered the transformer architecture, and had been playing with encoder decoders in our previous business. And the problem that and the insights that led to Writer were really around, hey, were we able to use transformers to translate bad English to good English, off-brand English to on-brand English in the enterprise? And working on English felt like a much larger market opportunity that was very exciting. And what's happened from the beginning of us working on Writer 3 years ago till today is the risks associated with incorporating AI have basically gone to zero. It's the opposite now. It's every executive team mandating that everyone become an AI expert. And we've been building an enterprise-ready AI solution. We didn't call it generative AI when we started 3 years ago, really since then. And from the beginning, we were designing an end-to-end platform because our insight from being in machine translation and enterprise localization was that the entire kind of user experience being very consistent across a company was very important. And so our being able to impact every part of a business was built in from the ground up. From a platform perspective, we are giving technology teams what they need: access to a foundation model in a secure environment, access to index and knowledge graph capabilities, plus AI guardrails. And then we give line of business owners and their employees the ability to very quickly find fast time to value in generative AI applications. And so the organization ends up with, including Accenture, who we've been proud to partner with as customers for the past couple of years. It gives teams the ability to very quickly prototype and take into production generative AI workflows built into the specific teams. So we've been doing this for 3 years, and it's been a very strong partnership with both technology teams and the digital teams working together.
Yeah, Paul Doherty, who's the CTO of our company, and wrote a really great book kind of in this area, Humans Plus Machines, in the way that what's the impacts of humans plus machines. And he recently, along with our research department, made a comment that 40% of all the tasks that we do on a daily basis are going to be AI will be used to incorporate them in. Are you seeing that with your clients? And you've got some pretty impressive clients. You've got Merck, you've got Uber, you've got a large amount of the Global 2000 already using your technology. What are you seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah. 44% of our customers use us on 3 or more teams inside of the business. I think some of the most interesting kind of attributes of the early adopters is this cross-functional partnership and approach to AI. And this wasn't the case pre-ChatGPT. Pre-ChatGPT, our champions were going around kind of knocking on doors. Hey, we've got this cool thing. You all should try it. And now, it's kind of this edict, top down to move AI through the organization. But I think the reason we have been so successful is we focus on adoption of that end employee above all else. And the kind of dirty secret of AI right now, generative AI, is end user adoption sucks. And you've got people who will use an app or a tool, the consumer ones, as Lan alluded to. And once the novelty has worn off, they're not really revisiting it. And there's a lot of, wait, this is it type of responses to a lot of the generative AI that's been being introduced into enterprise. Like, the stakes are high, and these are professionals who have been doing their jobs, whether in HR or IT or in marketing or in sales for a long time. And, when you say, hey, I'm bringing in AI to help you do your job, it better be freaking amazing. They better be falling off their chairs excited to use it. And so, we, get adoption by building it into the workflows using our knowledge of various practices and the involvement of the teams. And two, we are maniacal about designing workflows that really sit inside of a company's tooling to all but guarantee adoption. We do a lot of training, a lot of office hours. The product itself is very consumer grade and user friendly. But what's enterprise grade is that this is integrated into workflows, and it's workflow first versus, hey, here's a shiny new tool. Our CEO wants us to use it based on a cool, sexy demo. Go ahead, go to town. That doesn't work. And so I would say that the attributes of the folks leaning in and getting success are this cross-functional alignment and information sharing, similar to the task force you all have put together. And two, it is a focus on end user adoption and real kind of specificity around how we're rolling this out and the workflow-based approach versus try it and figure it out.
Love that. I love that topic on adoption and making sure it's not the shiny new object that loses its shine in a few months. Lan, you're probably at the center of that. These are the positives, but there are also a lot of potential risks that we are reading about and seeing with generative AI: bias, misinformation. There's a huge worry going on job displacement. Would love to hear what steps can enterprises take in order to make sure that we are using AI responsibly and ethically.
Yeah, sure. I think that's one of the top of mind questions many clients ask us, right? I will add to that a little bit, right? In fact, I think when we talk about the potential risk of generative AI, it's not just the typical ones that we've been hearing all the time, right? The bias, the ethics. In fact, there are newer risks, getting introduced because of the pervasive nature, because of the generative nature of this new class of AI. For example, accuracy. Right, accuracy of the models, right, has a lot to do with accuracy of your underlying data. So we have all heard of this term of hallucination, right? And again, when you dig deeper into the root cause of hallucination, by this foundation models, a lot of times it's because of the incomplete, inaccurate, untraceable data being fed into the foundation model. And the same concern could apply to the fine-tuning stage. Okay, so that's an example of the newer risk categories that we are uncovering using our very robust responsible AI framework. Language toxicity is another one I often talk about. Right, again, in the past, we care about the accuracy of the model, predictive power of the model, but because the predictive model don't necessarily generate contents, right? So toxicity of the content output wasn't relevant, in the past. Now you actually need to, use the specific measures, specific techniques to measure the toxicity or lack of toxicity, right, in the output, and also care for some of the cultural nuances that is specific to a country, region, or demographics. Right, so I think those are the two examples of the newer things that now we need to be paying attention to. And if you look a little bit more broadly, it's not just responsible AI, also AI safety, right? So again, because of the pervasive nature of this type of AI, there are bad actors out there, right? Doing data poisoning, right? Trying to manipulate the underlying model algorithms. Again, I'm not saying that that's happening every day, right? But definitely as a business leaders, when they think about accelerating their generative AI journey, thinking about making generative AI part of their enterprise fabric, those are the newer risks that they need to be paying attention to. Well, the good thing is this is part of Accenture's job, right, to actually bring this kind of enterprise-ready generative AI architecture so that we precondition, right, a lot of this areas for our clients, industry by industry, technology by technology.
Yeah. And then from Writer.AI, May, what are you seeing as some of the not only additional challenges, but maybe, the biggest challenges, right? Especially that are facing the development and the adoption of generative AI.
Yeah, I think those of us who have been doing this before, it was called generative AI, take a slightly different approach. And in a lot of ways, we started with AI governance. The first version of Writer that we went to market with was only doing editing, and it wasn't doing generating. We worked from a place of trust to add those capabilities because we couldn't scare the shit out of people, because the risk of AI was associated with AI was too great. And so we really needed to tiptoe around what the capabilities were in the early days. And I think the NLP based approach that we have, is very grounded in the business reality. If I'm United Healthcare, for compliance purposes, I have to only write at a 6th grade reading level if I'm talking to consumers in Florida versus, 4th grade reading level in Massachusetts. And so whatever comes out of the model, we have been doing post-processing on that using NLP for a long time. So we feel very ready. There is an inclusive language feature built into our product. And in fact, a number of our enterprise customers actually bill Writer under DEI initiatives because of that functionality. So the AI guardrails piece to our product is very robust. We've been working on it for a long time. It's not in response to risks associated with LLMs, and it's absolutely real. Whether you are doing fact checking or compliance checking, those are all things that need to happen before anything is production ready. And what we've seen is, a lot of folks have very sexy demos out there, very few for AI guardrails purposes and infrastructure purposes are really ready for the productionization of these use cases. But I agree with Lan, a lot of the risks can be addressed with the right knowledge being combined with the model at the retrieval step and in the training data or the fine tuning, but not all of it. And we see ourselves just as much an NLP company as an LLM company, and as a result, the solution is quite comprehensive, taking into account the risk appetite for enterprise.
I love that you use the word trust, May. I think, I jokingly, but not so jokingly, been saying that the last 30 years we were all delivering ease of use, and so you mentioned that with the consumer oriented on the user interface. But I think the next 30 years is going to be all about trust as the key feature for almost every technology, every data source that we have. And developing that, and what I particularly liked about what you're offering is making technology human-centric. And that's kind of a different spin on it. But when if your automation is producing a press release or some kind of a written document, you still have the human as being the ultimate editor before it goes in production. And so we have 10,000 proof of concepts out there that aren't going into production because of trust. And the solutions that put a human-centric view to automation, I think, are the ones that are going to move forward. But I love the fact that you brought up trust.
Yeah, and Tom, I liked that you brought up the 30-year versus it reminded me of a quote that Bill Gates made, that humans typically tend to underestimate the potential of change, right? And you could say through emerging technology. In the first year that the technology is introduced, they overestimated, in the first year, and then they underestimate what it is capable of doing over the next 10 years, right? Yeah. So both May, you and Lan, right? I mean, as I said, you're at the center of this, and this is the first year you're seeing where everybody is like, oh my gosh, this is going to change the world, that overestimation of what this technology can do. If you had to kind of find that balance, what is your advice to enterprises in order to help find that balance of overestimating in the first year versus underestimating for the 10 years to follow?
I'm happy to take that. I actually challenge customers to choose the highest stakes use case first, not the lowest stakes use case first. You want to choose the use case that will have people falling off their chair when they see what's possible versus okay, that's nice, but I was expecting that result anyway, type of response. And when you do that, and we've got lots of examples in our customer base. When you do that, it really gets people so excited. It gets them dreaming about a future where more of us have got a lot more time to be creative. And my personal vision and hope for what AI can do as it moves from managing tasks to helping us orchestrate work is allow us to find flow from a greater chunk of our day, be more creative for a greater part of our jobs. And I do think that that is what that's what people are underestimating over the long run. And when you, in the short run, actually kind of like focus the team on doing the hardest possible thing, they're going to surprise themselves. And that will really open up, I think, a whole way of thinking that can be very energizing.
Yeah, Shivani, if I can add to that, I think that's a fantastic question. Okay, it's a holy grail question, and in my mind, so far we've been having 1,800, conversations over the last 6 months. But by now, I think that's the stat last week. So it's probably 2,000 now, right? I think there's this common theme coming out of those discussions, which is AI adoption is the cultural issue. Okay, there's this cultural aspect, the complete cultural shift. That every business leader needs to be able to master in order to reach this dream, right? The holy grail of AI adoption, which frankly is the happy medium that we are talking about here. And I think again, if I quickly break down this culture-driven kind of adoption, there are three things, right? First and foremost is completely tying to this democratized nature of generative AI, right? According to any technology acceptance theory going back, 50 years, right? Ability for the users to try this kind of technology, right? Emerging technology is super important. That's why our first advice to the business leader is go experiment, okay? Go experiment, set up a sandbox, you bring in Writer.AI type of technology, put into your sandbox. You may choose to use other bigger models too. That's okay. But give this kind of generative AI tool, right, to your employees in the safe environment so that your data is protected. But then, democratize generative AI to the general, users within your corporate environment so that they are not just playing with ChatGPT from the consumer point of view, right? They can actually start using this on a daily basis, data analysis, or doing, creative writing, as the brainstorming tool, right? So I think that's the first point, which is triability, right? Improve the triability experimentation of the generative AI, which is a pretty big culture shift. I think the second one is basically learning literacy. I know that's not a new topic, right? Even before generative AI, we spent so much time. We even work with a lot of companies that Tom brought in, right, to improve the AI learning. But I would say even, but the job is not done yet. In fact, because of the generative AI, now we have more responsibilities, right, to actually train our regular business users some of the AI literacy skills. So to me, that's also a very important step for every business leader to take. I would say the third one is actually, again, going back to my favorite point, right? While all these things are happening, democratizing AI for you to reach that happy medium so that you're not taking on too much risk, but at the same time, you're not falling behind, is actually, invest in the technology, right, to precondition your systems, okay? Things like getting your data ready. Things like, putting down this kind of responsible AI layer, what we consider as no regret moves. Now we have seen some of the leading companies, they are investing in this space so that they can get things started. So these are the three things that I think every business leaders should be thinking about if they want to accelerate their AI adoption within their enterprise.
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, you go for it.
I was going to add a data point from our business, and this is tens of thousands of user data points. 60%-ish of our users report being 30% or more productive, which is a stat that the executive is very excited about. The other 40%, 10 to 15, don't touch it, right? And we're figuring that out. We've got world-class adoption numbers, and we want to get to 100% because this is an important equity issue for us. Another, 15-ish to 20%, depending on the customer, report being 200% or more productive. And so executives are going to see this range of kind of early adopter outcomes where it's going to create a lot of issues if executives don't have this kind of equal enablement type of toolkit in front of them to help everybody come up that learning curve. I don't think any of us want a world where most of our companies are doing what we do today at a third of the headcount. I don't think that's good for society. But right now, if we don't figure out a way to get everybody on that steep learning curve, right? I wrote last week that the pace of disruption, the pace of innovation is the disruption, right? And getting everybody used to learning and acquiring new skills at the new pace is going to be the skill that enterprises will want to be investing in. But yeah, I really agree with that, Lan. The adoption imperative here is way bigger than in any other tech innovation cycle because all this innovation is happening in a much shorter period of time. The LLM advantage compounds. And we use LLMs in all sorts of ways in our business that people wouldn't think we are, to use them. And the enterprises who get that same competitive advantage, really are set to outpace everybody else.
I love Lan's point also, both your answers on this, but Lan's point about it's a cultural shift. This is, big waves of technology require big waves of cultural shift, which I think sometimes we get so focused on the tools, we forget that we need a whole new methodology, a whole new approach to doing this responsibly and how we go about it. And so fundamentally, I think trust is going to be based off how transparent we all are on where we get our data, how good is the data, what the insights are all about, and ultimately how human-centric we are about these elements. So I think the methodology gets lost in translation, but this is what I think foundationally is going to be core for Accenture to bring to as an independent, agnostic global system integration firm. I see Accenture as the adult supervision in a very crowded generative AI space, and particularly around methodologies and approaches.
Yeah, there's just so much of the buzz around Gen AI, right? With Accenture as kind of that supervisor or that cop. But May, in your opinion, what can organizations or what should organizations, enterprises do now? What can they do today to get ready for the sea of change and for all of this disruption we've talked about that's coming their way?
We have talked about, going one step further than the Gen AI strategy or task force into really thinking about AI program management as its own function. And you've got to have the foundations in place, as Lan said, around the strategy, the risk appetite, the code of conduct for AI use, both internally and the AI principles you communicate to your audience. But once you're through there, the only way we have seen actually get this portfolio of AI experiments out of the sandbox and into actual production is to not just make it kind of someone's part-time job, but make it somebody's full-time job to reimagine workflows for their teams AI first. There's a JD up on our site for AI program director. We have now seen companies do kind of AI program leads. And even just in kind of the MNC group at Accenture, we've seen just incredible mindset shift and real innovation come out of folks who've got hands-on experience with Writer and understand what's possible and really start proposing new use cases to their org and actively building them out. So that would be kind of the number one piece of advice is really seek to get out of the sandbox and into production and make it somebody's full-time job to get you there.
Yeah,
anything to add there? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I can't wait to jump in. I think my number one advice to every business leader, is actually now it's a prime time to get your data ready. Get your data ready. Okay, this is the term of data-centric AI is becoming real and real. Okay, in this case, again, in the past I always joke about like, okay, before Gen AI, right? Every company is building their own models, lots of models, right? Lots of our clients have hundreds, if not, thousands of models. Very, very common, right? And because at that time you can still harness the power of algorithms, okay, for whatever business problems that you're solving for. I think in the age of generative AI, more and more companies will pivot their AI landscape, right, to the use of foundation models, which are pre-trained, right, which are based on the public data. I'm not saying that purpose-built models are completely going away, but it's going to be a hybrid, right? So in that case, with that pivot, what's going to be the source of your competitive advantage as a bank, as an insurance company, as a healthcare company, right? It's going to be your unique data. So again, that's why I oftentimes remind the business leaders. Now, okay, all the things we've been talking about, data integration, data migration, creating modern data platform, create consumable data products, right? Clean up your knowledge base, right? All these things, when done right, could very quickly become your source of your competency, right?
Love that.
On top of the foundation models.
Yeah. So within Accenture, right, we call this the digital core, the enterprise's digital core, which is the data piece that Lan talked about, the AI piece that May talked about, but it's also your security, your cloud, your platforms. So that's your enterprise digital core, and get that ready. The stronger that digital core is, the more you can do around it. Now, I've taken that and actually even applied it at the personal level, saying along with that, each individual needs to build their digital core, which Lan talked about a little bit earlier in terms of upskilling and reskilling and that piece. So it is the getting ready the enterprise digital core and getting ready the individual digital core as well.
No, I love that we had a candid conversation about what can be done and what still is left to be done. This is the ultimate. It takes a village. And it's going to be a lot of different technologies at the platform level, at the orchestration level, where I hope lots of responsible AI will be instrumented. The thing I hope the most is that every individual company adopts a Bill of Rights or a constitution around their responsibilities to delivering AI in a proper way. And I think that will be foundational. It's not going to be one constitution that everybody abides by or a specific one to a tool. It has to be to the brand and to the company. And I think that if we can get to that level, we'll accelerate innovation even further than it's already accelerated here.
I think one pressure that we haven't touched on is what it's going to look like to recruit junior people in an age where some organizations are more AI enabled than others. We all probably started our careers in places where being at your desk at midnight was absolutely the norm and part of the job. I think most organizations, even today, have a hard time recruiting the best junior talent that is willing to do that. And what's great about the capabilities of this generation of AI tools is we can automate a lot of some of that like junior grunt work. And the companies that figure that out are going to be much more attractive employers. And so we haven't seen that really develop yet because we're so early in AI. But I think that's going to be another big source of folks who come to Accenture looking for transformation advice because it's going to be pretty existential whether you can recruit people or not.
No, I would just say to me, this is truly exciting time. We are still at the infancy stage, okay, despite all the investment going into this technology. And to Tom's point earlier, I think oftentimes we get enamored by the technology, right? We don't take steps back, say, okay, what really matters here? What really matters here is the power of the decisions, right? Power of using all the data that you have to make informed decisions to drive every single business outcome, right? In the business context, and that could also apply to your personal life, right? To me, that's the holy grail, right? Tomorrow could be some other AI, right? Gen AI is not going to be here forever, right? Maybe other innovations, right? But I think what we're reading, I think this is a wake-up moment to a lot of business leaders, right? Which, frankly, they haven't encountered in the past is the power of using data, using AI to make decisions, to take actions.
Wonderful.
Well, I'd like to thank each of you, May, Lan, and Tom,
Thank you,
for taking the time today. This was a really engaging, very insightful discussion. Hopefully our audience found this helpful as well. And thanks again. And I'll see you in the spotlight, as Tom says.